He won America's Got Talent. He sang his heart out on national television. But now, whispers are growing louder, and they're not about applause. Something's not right. Richard Goodall became a household name overnight. But behind the golden buzzer and standing ovation lies a truth that millions missed. What's happening to the singing janitor from Terre Haute is more complex, and more heartbreaking, than anyone imagined. Some call it a cautionary tale. Others say it's a glimpse into the dark side of overnight fame. Simon Cowell saw raw talent. But did the world ever really see the man behind the microphone? This is more than unexpected, it's devastating. And if you think you know his story, you're only hearing the chorus, not the verses. A janitor, a dream, a voice. Terre Haute's quiet star. Long before Hollywood's spotlight, Richard Goodall walked the dim hallways of Chauncey Rose Middle School, pushing a mop, humming Journey classics, and holding on to something no one else could see. To most in Terre Haute, Indiana, he was just Mr. Richard, the janitor with a kind word, a steady hand, and a job to do. But when his voice floated through the halls, everything paused. It wasn't just sound, it was soul. Richard wasn't born into music. No childhood recitals, no expensive training, no glossy headshots, just raw talent, tucked away in a life of quiet repetition. He had a second-hand stereo from Radio Shack and a passion too big for the small room he practiced in. Every note was an escape, every lyric, a piece of a life he could almost imagine. But dreams, in his world, had curfews. After high school, there were no scholarships, just bills and reality. He took the janitor job at the local middle school. 1 year turned into 2, then into decades. For 23 years, Richard showed up. Early, always, even in blizzards. Yet the fluorescent lights and waxed floors didn't silence his voice. They gave it context, meaning. He sang at Veterans Day assemblies, during lunch duty, at talent shows. It wasn't for attention, it was for connection. Students started calling him the singing janitor, not as a joke, but with genuine respect. For many, he was the first person who made music feel like it belonged to them. Teachers noticed, too. Some said his voice could silence a noisy hallway in seconds. Others admitted they came early, not for grading, but for the private concert before the bell rang. His voice wasn't background noise. It was the heartbeat of the school. Steady, unshaken, but even those closest to him didn't know how deeply music ran through his veins. Because for Richard, singing wasn't a hobby. It was survival. Every lyric was a lifeline. Every song, a silent cry the world never heard. Every note, a release. A quiet rebellion against the routine. Most people outside Terre Haute had no idea what was happening inside that school. They didn't know Richard Goodall was quietly building a legacy, one hallway, one harmony at a time. His world remained small, but the smallest spark can light a wildfire. And for Richard, one unscripted moment, one song, was about to turn everything upside down. It happened during a routine 2022 school assembly. The kind everyone forgets, until someone doesn't. Richard Goodall stepped up to the mic, not to dazzle, not to perform, but because something inside told him to sing Don't Stop Believin'. He wasn't scheduled to perform. He didn't plan to go viral. But as the first notes left his lips, the room shifted. The noise faded. The moment crystallized. A teaching assistant pulled out her phone. She almost didn't press record. But she did, and in just a few minutes, she captured a performance that would echo far beyond those gym walls. That clip hit TikTok later that day. By nightfall, it had thousands of views. By morning, hundreds of thousands. And by the weekend, it had passed 1 million. Then came the moment no one could have predicted. A comment appeared beneath the video. 3 words from Steve Perry, the iconic voice of Journey, "I love this." Richard thought it was fake. A prank. But it wasn't. It was real. All of it. And it was happening fast. The video ricocheted across social media, Facebook shares, YouTube montages, Instagram reels. Momentum built like a chorus rising. Local news caught wind. Terre Haute lit up. They always knew Richard could sing, but now the world knew too. Some said it was his raw emotion. Others pointed to the story behind the voice. An everyday man, a powerful gift, and no ego to carry it. Students who once nodded politely in the hall now watched their janitor make headlines. Parents who knew him as the guy sweeping up after dances were forwarding the video across the country. Richard Goodall was no longer just a custodian. He was our Richard, Terre Haute's own. Cafes played his voice on loop. Baristas wiped away tears behind the counter. Teachers rewatched the video over and over. The sentiment was the same in every corner of town. It's about time the world saw what we've always known. But that TikTok wasn't the story. It was just the ignition. The flame had caught. Now the fire was coming. As attention swelled, so did the pressure. Applause is thrilling, but it echoes differently when the crowd never stops watching. And with the pressure came something else: opportunity. Richard had no idea that a single video would drag his quiet, grounded life into a world few are ever prepared for. A world of judgment, resilience, and a stage called America's Got Talent. By the time his video went viral, the phone was already ringing. Reporters, morning shows, talent agents. But one message would stand out and change everything. America's Got Talent was interested. But for Richard, the name came with baggage. This wasn't the first time he tried. Back in 2009, he auditioned quietly, no cameras, no story segment, just a man and a dream. He was cut before he even opened his mouth. Years later, he submitted to The Voice. The reply came swift and cold: "Thank you for your audition. You will not be moving on." It stung deeply, but still, he sang. Alone, unnoticed, undeterred. So when America's Got Talent reached out again, he didn't leap. He paused. "I just didn't think people like me belonged on those stages," he later admitted. But his fiancée, Angie, wasn't having it. "What have you got to lose?" she said. And with that, he packed a bag, boarded his first flight to Los Angeles, and landed with a cooler full of lunch meat and cottage cheese, saving money any way he could. Then came the stage, the spotlight, the 4 celebrity judges, Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Sofia Vergara, waiting. Richard chose Don't Stop Believin'. Again, it wasn't just a song. It was his song, his story wrapped in melody. And as he sang, something shifted again. Judges leaned in, the crowd rose, the energy climbed, then, impact, the golden buzzer. Heidi Klum stood and slammed the button with both hands. Gold confetti fell like a second chance from the sky. Richard stood frozen. "I never wanted to be famous. I just wanted to sing," he said, voice shaking, tears in his eyes. Even Simon Cowell, rare with praise, called it unexpected and absolutely unforgettable. Backstage, Cowell gave Richard a wordless nod. Just a look, but one that said, "You earned this." In that moment, Richard wasn't just the singing janitor. He was something bigger, a contender, a revelation. The judges saw more than a gimmick. They saw honesty, depth, and raw heart. But as the world cheered, few truly understood the price of that moment. What it cost just to try again. Because what happens behind the TV lights is rarely shown. The decades of rejection, the quiet nights of self-doubt, and the courage to step forward once more. Fame was blooming, but the real test was still ahead. Even now, with the spotlight on him, Richard faced a question few celebrities ever do: do I go back? And if so, to what? A star was born, but he never stopped cleaning classrooms. Richard Goodall left the America's Got Talent stage a millionaire. But just a week later, he returned to Chauncey Rose Middle School, with a mop in hand. The same cracked tiles, the same squeaky cart, the same kids in the hall. The lights of Hollywood had faded, but Richard hadn't. To most, it didn't make sense. National fame, then back to scrubbing gum off lockers. But that's exactly what happened. Richard had won season 19. His voice had moved a nation. And yet, Monday morning, he was back. No limo, no security detail, just Richard, and his ring of school keys. "This is terrible," one fan wrote online. Shocked that a golden buzzer winner was still working as a janitor, fans didn't know what to make of it. But Richard didn't see it that way. "I'm still me," he told Today.com. "This school, these kids, they're part of who I am." In Terre Haute, there were no paparazzi. Just teachers greeting him with a smile and kids shouting, "Mr. Richard," down the halls. They didn't treat him like a celebrity. They treated him like family. The cafeteria still poured his usual coffee. 7th graders still begged him to sing over the noise of lunch. When he walked into the gym for a surprise school rally, they handed him the keys to the city, cheers louder than any stage crowd. To the students, seeing their janitor win America's Got Talent didn't put him on a pedestal. It brought the stars down to their level. He was proof that someone like them could go far, and still come back. Because success doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means holding on tighter. Most people don't see what happens after the cameras stop rolling. There's no script for what comes next. Richard went home not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Fame didn't pull him away. Terre Haute pulled him back in. They didn't just watch him rise. They were his roots when the applause faded. Still, Richard knew the stillness couldn't last forever. Even as he stayed grounded, the world was shifting under his feet. A decision was looming. A life of touring, interviews, and recording waited beyond the school gates. But that wasn't the only weight he carried. Before America met Richard Goodall as the singing janitor, he was a husband, a devoted partner. He and Patricia Sue had shared nearly 30 years of ordinary, beautiful life, Christmas lights, worn-out anniversary cards, and inside jokes no one else knew. Then came the diagnosis: cancer. It moved faster than they could. On June 19, 2021, Patricia passed away. Quietly, brutally. There was no press release, no dramatic announcement, just a raw Instagram post with a single sentence that shattered hearts. "I did my best, but my best wasn't good enough." His grief was sharp and unfiltered. He compared cancer to being punched in the gut, then told to stand up and smile. He didn't want pity, he wanted to breathe, so he kept showing up. To school, to life. He sang because silence was too heavy. And somehow, the days kept moving. Then came Angie. A year later, Richard posted a simple photo, him and a woman, sitting at a Mexican restaurant. "Fun night with my lady at Taco Tequilas." Her name was Angie Vanovan. She made him laugh. She believed in his voice. She was there when a GT called. And just days before the season 19 finale, they got married. The emotional whiplash was real. Grief hadn't gone anywhere, but now, it sat beside hope at the table. Richard still wore his pain, but now he wore a ring again too. Most people watching a GT didn't know the full story. They saw the confident voice, not the man backstage, clutching a photo of the woman he lost. Each note he sang carried a lifetime. Love had found him twice. Once in comfort, once in chaos. And though the world celebrated his new beginning, Richard knew, some parts of the past never let go. And what he couldn't yet see was how the rising tide of fame was about to crash into the still healing corners of his heart. Because with fame comes a quieter cost. One no one warns you about: silence. The kind that sets in after the standing ovations are over. After the headlines slow down. Few know what it's like to go from anonymous to national sensation in a matter of weeks, especially when you're nearly 60. Richard wasn't some wide-eyed teen chasing stardom. He was a man who'd loved and lost, swept classrooms for decades, and now faced something entirely new: the pressure to stay relevant. That pressure, for someone already carrying emotional scars, can be suffocating. What looks like a dream from the outside often presses down like a weight. Behind the red carpets and recorded interviews is a man waking up alone, wondering if the world still cares now that the voting's over. Richard admitted it, quietly, to a friend. "I should be happy all the time. But sometimes I'm not. It's hard to speak about loneliness when people think you've made it." At school, the hugs still come. The pride still beams. Students shout his name like nothing's changed. But when he walks through his front door, the noise falls away. The rooms echo. Angie, now his wife, travels often for work. Sometimes she's gone for days. His schedule is unpredictable. Many nights end with the glow of a muted TV and no one beside him to share the moment. Fame didn't erase his grief. It didn't make aging feel less sharp. In fact, it magnified the silence. Richard now finds himself reflecting more, not less, replaying old choices, counting the years he kept his voice hidden. There's pride in what he's accomplished. But there's also regret, for the time lost, for the songs that lived too long in silence. He now performs in front of thousands. Yet somehow, he's never felt more alone. Most people don't see that part. They see the confetti, the stage lights, the signature smile. But they don't see the quiet hesitation when someone asks, "How are you really doing?" For Richard, fame is both a gift and a ghost. And as expectations rise, so does the weight. Because when the spotlight fades, and it always fades, what's left behind is the man, still standing, still waiting for the lights to return. Then came the rumors, the critics, and the whispers that reached all the way to the FBI. The glow of victory didn't last. As soon as Richard Goodall was crowned America's Got Talent winner, the backlash began. It started with sarcastic tweets, doubting whether another singer deserved the crown. Then came Reddit threads, blog rants, TikToks dissecting his performances frame by frame. Elevated karaoke, some sneered. Others dismissed him entirely. He won because of nostalgia. Journey songs always get votes. It's not even original, one viewer wrote. In an instant, the man who poured his heart into the mic was being picked apart by strangers. "This is terrible," fans replied, horrified. But the critiques didn't stop at the music. Soon, questions turned toward AGT itself. Richard was the 8th singer to win in 19 seasons. Was that too many? Was the show favoring feel-good stories over genuine originality? Whispers of manufactured moments and selective editing grew louder. Then the narrative darkened. An anonymous blog post alleged Richard had unknowingly endorsed a sketchy tech partnership shortly after his win. Within days, videos began circulating, speculating that his name and image had been tied to a fraudulent entertainment platform. Claims spread that investors, lured by his story, had been misled. The words FBI investigation began trending in hashtags. Richard didn't comment. His team issued a short statement denying any wrongdoing. No charges were filed. No formal investigation followed. But the damage was done. The question echoed, what's happening behind the scenes? How did a humble school janitor go from golden buzzer to federal suspicion in just months? Some believed Richard was used, pulled into a game he never agreed to play. Others claimed he knew more than he let on. His loyal fans pushed back, hard, leave him alone. He gave us joy. He's not a criminal. The truth remains murky. What's happening to Richard Goodall isn't simple. And it's not the fairy tale ending people wanted. Fame burns hot and fast. Now, Richard's story hangs between inspiration and controversy. With pressure mounting and facts tangled, only one question remains. Can he survive what comes next? While the world spiraled, something remarkable was happening back home. Terre Haute rose to support him. As headlines sharpened and online speculation grew, his hometown stood firm, knowing exactly who he was. To them, he wasn't a controversy, he was family. When Richard couldn't afford to bring loved ones to the AGT finals, a local man launched a GoFundMe. In days, it hit 6 figures. The outpouring of support flooded in. We believe in you, and this town is behind you, win or lose. When Richard returned home, the mayor handed him the key to the city. Schools closed early. Banners proudly proclaimed his triumph. The rally at West Vigo Middle School drew a crowd larger than expected. Our janitor, our hero, one sign read. Manipors, his local band, now played every weekend, raising funds for school music programs. No scandal could erase that. Terre Haute's faith wasn't about showbiz, it was about heart. While critics online questioned, his neighbors stood by him. They saw the man who once sang to empty hallways, never asking for anything in return. The demands of fame were growing, and Richard now faces a choice between home and the stage. What comes next? Since AGT, Richard's career has taken off, performing at major events and booking shows across the Midwest. But he still hasn't quit his janitor job at Chauncey Rose Middle School. I'll know when the time's right, he says. Fame hasn't changed Richard's grounded routine. He sings when he can, sweeps floors when he needs to. Whatever comes, comes, he says. If I sing more, great. If I go back to the school full-time, that's great too. His humility is his armor, shielding him from pressure and chaos. Though the spotlight shifts, Richard's story is still unfolding, and not everyone is ready for how it might end. He's more than his voice, he's a symbol of resilience, a man whose talent was forged in quiet years of struggle. Fame found him late, but he remains grounded. In a world obsessed with flash, Richard reminds us that true talent doesn't need spectacle. His journey is both cautionary and triumphant, showing what happens when ordinary people are thrust into extraordinary circumstances. His fame hasn't erased his past, but it's added new notes to a song that's always been about more than music. Most people don't know the full story of Richard Goodall, but maybe it's time they did. What were your thoughts when you first heard him sing? Share in the comments. Catch you in the next video.